Okiku, a Japanese ghost story by KuroKoneko Kamen.
Tales from the Cryptkeeper.
Okiku's shoulders throbbed, yet she hesitated to pause, fearing the shogun might perceive her as neglecting her responsibilities. As a servant, she was tasked with washing dishes within Himeji Castle and providing meals to the prisoners confined in the dungeon. At the moment, she was transporting a tray filled with small bowls of millet porridge, delivering them to the prisoners in their individual cells, one at a time. During her initial employment at the castle, Okiku was led to the treasury, a room filled with various valuable items. Among them, the shogun's most prized possessions were a set of 10 exquisite Delft plates, a type of decorative porcelain. These plates were often used to impress high-ranking guests. However, on the day the shogun's daughter, Keiko, married samurai Aoyama he presented these plates to the newlyweds as a wedding gift. Okiku was responsible for maintaining, safeguarding, and cleaning the precious Delft plates. She understood the importance of handling them with care. A single chip in one of the plates would have resulted in severe consequences, as the samurai Aoyama or his wife Keiko, known for their fiery temperaments, would not hesitate to demand her dismissal. The dish attendant, Okiku, was a captivating figure, drawing the attention of numerous samurai within the castle. Unbeknownst to Okiku, several prisoners in the dungeon had developed feelings for her during her caretaking. However, it was Samurai Aoyama who had fallen deeply in love with Okiku, a man known for his intense jealousy. To prevent any interaction between Okiku and the prisoners during meal delivery, Aoyama ordered their tongues to be removed. As Okiku performed her duties, she frequently felt Aoyama's gaze upon her, intense and leering, but she endeavored to disregard him and his unwanted attention. Okiku remained oblivious to the fact that Aoyama had ordered the prisoners' tongues to be removed, assuming instead that they chose not to speak to her when she greeted them. This left her feeling a sense of loneliness while carrying out her duties in the dungeon. She believed the prisoners' spirits had been crushed by their incarceration, or perhaps by the harsh treatment they received from the Lord. One prisoner, however, engaged in conversation with her. This individual would converse with Okiku each day as she delivered his millet porridge. He identified himself as a ronin, a samurai without a master, and went by the name Shinji. Despite his grim situation, Shinji possessed a friendly, casual demeanor. His spirit remained unbroken, a trait that Okiku respected and appreciated. Before Okiku knew it, she found herself developing feelings for him. Shinji would often tease and flirt with Okiku, to which she would respond with disinterest and feign indifference. In truth, she relished his playful banter and the attention he bestowed upon her, the way he gazed at her, his cheerful smile, his compassionate eyes. On that particular day, Okiku prepared rice balls for Shinji. In the Sengoku period or feudal Japan, rice was highly valued, and it was not uncommon for taxes to be paid in rice. Okiku hoped that her gesture would bring a smile to Shinji's face and brighten his day. His smile always had a way of making her heart flutter. Approaching Shinji's cell after serving the other prisoners, Okiku called out,
"Shinji, are you awake?"
Shinji playfully teased, "I'm always on alert, Okiku-chan, for I eagerly anticipate your visits and the sight of your beautiful face." He winked.
"Surely you jest. Don't tease me, Shinji."
Okiku playfully admonished, stooping before the cell door adorned with bars, her gaze fixed on him. As usual, Shinji's appearance was striking, a man with short brown hair and warm, long-lashed brown eyes. His hair had been trimmed, possibly as a symbol of disgrace in the eyes of his former lord. Okiku found Shinji captivating and enigmatic, as he seldom shared details about himself. Clad in a red haori wrap shirt and black hakama pants, he exuded an air of charm. Shinji sincerely assured Okiku, "I'm not joking, dear Okiku. Seeing your radiant, moon-like face is the best part of my day." Okiku lowered her head, revealing a subtle smile, as she extracted a handkerchief-wrapped bundle from the sleeve of her kimono. Inside, she found 4 homemade rice balls she had prepared especially for Shinji. She extended her arm through the cell bars and set the rice balls on the handkerchief on the cell floor.
"Here you go, made with rice. I trust you'll find them delightful."
Shinji's eyes widened in astonishment at the unexpected gift, and his gaze softened and warmed as he looked at Okiku. He observed her blush, but chose not to comment on it. "You made these for me? I'm deeply touched, but I'm not particularly hungry." Okiku's face showed a hint of disappointment. It seemed Shinji was unwell once more, as he rarely felt hunger. Her concern for his health grew. Shinji noticed Okiku's crestfallen expression and offered her a roguish grin. "You know what would make me happy? Watching you eat those rice balls." Okiku raised an eyebrow at the cheeky ronin.
You want to watch me eat?
"Yes," Shinji confirmed, with a mischievous twinkle in his brown eyes. Okiku playfully scolded,
You're quite the flirt.
but she still accepted the rice balls and started eating them. A soft moan escaped Okiku as she savored the delectable flavor. She let out a contented sigh. She had secretly added some extra ingredients, like tuna and plums, to the rice balls, hoping to bring a smile to Shinji's face. Unfortunately, her plan backfired, and it was she who was now relishing the rice balls instead of Shinji. As Okiku gazed into Shinji's eyes, she noticed a warmth that went beyond simple happiness. It seemed to be a softer emotion, perhaps admiration or concern. Okiku's cheeks flushed, but she dismissed the thought. Shinji couldn't possibly harbor feelings for her. Their playful banter and flirtation didn't equate to love. Okiku found herself savoring her rice balls, her eyes drawn to the ofuda fixed to the cell bars. She had often wondered about this peculiar practice, as ofuda were typically used to seal away deities or malevolent spirits within shrines or caves. Yet, here they were, adorning the bars of a prisoner's cell. Despite her curiosity, she had never broached the subject with Shinji. However, today, she mustered the courage to ask the question that had been lingering in her thoughts for quite some time.
Shinji, I've been wondering, why are there ofuda in the bars of your cell?
The question about the ofuda on his cell bars caused a shadow to pass over Shinji's face. "I've got Aoyama Tesan to thank for that," he replied casually. "He's a superstitious fellow who thinks I'm cursed. He's wary of me because I was betrayed by him. He's worried about my desire for revenge, so he had a Buddhist monk place ofuda on the bars of my cell. It likely gives him comfort knowing I'm imprisoned here with no means of escape." Okiku's eyes widened at the unexpected disclosure. She had never mustered the courage to inquire about Shinji's imprisonment or the nature of his crime. However, it seemed he had been deceived by Aoyama. Aoyama was renowned for his exceptional swordsmanship and his volatile temperament. The other servant girls in the castle admired Aoyama for his good looks, but Okiku felt a sense of unease whenever she saw him. His smile never seemed genuine, and he instilled a sense of fear within her. Shinji acknowledged her potential disbelief. "It's possible you might find this hard to accept," he said, "but Aoyama now holds the esteemed title of Hatamoto. The shogun has bestowed upon him lands and increased duties. He could potentially ascend to the rank of daimyo, responsible for raising his own armies, safeguarding his territories, and collecting taxes from them." Okiku responded promptly.
I believe you. There's an unsettling aura about Aoyama that I can't ignore. I don't feel comfortable around him. His penetrating gaze gives me an uneasy feeling. Are there any plans for retribution against Aoyama in your future?
A lopsided smile formed on Shinji's face. "You ask a very dangerous question of me, my dear. My answer is yes."
Why did he betray you?
Okiku asked curiously. "I'd rather not talk about it," Shinji said, gritting his teeth. "Aoyama was my best friend, and yet..." Shinji, it seemed, had once shared a bond of friendship with Aoyama, as Okiku had initially surmised. The revelation that Shinji had also been an honorable samurai stirred more affection within Okiku for Shinji. She had contemplated attempting to liberate him from his cell and fleeing together, but the lock on Shinji's cell was distinctly larger and more complex than the others, requiring a unique key that was currently unaccounted for. Pondering the lock on Shinji's cell, Okiku couldn't help but wish. Yet, this was merely a dream in Okiku's mind. She had never expressed her feelings to Shinji or promised to free him if possible. The realization that Shinji was once a samurai brought another question to the surface.
Where is your katana?
Okiku inquired. Shinji replied casually, "I believe Aoyama has my katana. If I had my sword, I could potentially escape. My sword is unique, as it was forged from the ore of a fallen star. I call it Kusanagi." Okiku's eyes sparkled with newfound hope. Perhaps it was not the key, but rather his sword that could secure Shinji's freedom.
Could I possibly retrieve your sword for you?
Okiku found herself asking impulsively. A wave of alarm washed over Shinji's features, and his countenance grew apprehensive. Okiku, stealing my sword could lead to your execution for theft. I can't let you jeopardize yourself for my benefit. Aoyama isn't a forgiving man. Don't provoke his anger. He's a dangerous individual. I beg you, promise me you won't act recklessly. Okiku murmured.
He's merely a man.
But her eyes met Shinji's concerned ones.
Rest assured, I have no intention of acting recklessly.
Shinji inquired earnestly, from where did you acquire the rice? Okiku hesitated before confessing,
Aoyama gifted it to me.
Indeed, it seems he holds you in high regard, Shinji remarked, his voice tinged with bitterness. Okiku stated,
He's married. It wouldn't be suitable to have such feelings.
Suitable? When has Aoyama ever demonstrated suitable behavior? Shinji sneered, then sighed and apologized. Pardon my words. Okiku finished her rice balls, licked her fingers, which caused Shinji to blush, and let out a disappointed sigh.
I must depart soon. It's nearly time for Aoyama's dinner, and I will need to retrieve his cherished golden plates for the meal with his wife.
Be careful, Shinji said as he watched Okiku stand and brush off the dirt from her purple kimono.
I will,
Okiku assured, walking away and leaving Shinji alone. Okiku made her way to the treasury, entered and approached a wooden cabinet adorned with a lock. Inside, 10 golden plates were neatly arranged. She reached into the sleeve of her kimono, retrieving the key and unlocked the cabinet. Picking out 2 plates, she couldn't help but feel the burden of responsibility weighing on her, given her role as the only one with access to the key for this cabinet. Okiku gazed upon the treasury's riches, which included samurai armor, helmets with horns, an assortment of weapons, porcelain vases and plates. Her eyes lingered on the displayed katanas, pondering if one of them might be Shinji's. She contemplated stealing one for him, but all the katanas appeared identical to her, despite Shinji's claims that his was unique. Okiku took the 2 golden plates and made her way to the kitchen, where the chef and cooks were busy preparing Aoyama and his wife's evening meal. After the food was placed on the golden plates, she artfully arranged side dishes on 2 small black wooden tables. First, Okiku served Keiko, placing the meal before the woman, who was seated on her knees on the room's woven tatami mat. The meal consisted of grilled fish on a golden plate, a bowl of steaming rice, a bowl of miso soup, and a bowl of colorful pickled vegetables. Keiko didn't even glance Okiku's way as the servant adjusted the little wooden table in front of her. This was as it should be, Okiku mused, appreciating the intricate design of Keiko's pink silk kimono adorned with vibrant peonies. A yellow obi sash encircled Keiko's waist, accentuating the highlights in her wavy brown hair. Keiko's kimono, a vibrant display of pink silk and peonies, contrasted with Okiku's worn-out lavender one, its edges frayed. The once dark purple obi sash around Okiku's waist now showed signs of age, unlike Keiko's own. Okiku's long, thick black hair was usually pulled back conservatively, unlike the wild waves of brown hair that framed Keiko's face. Pondering the situation, Okiku questioned her assumptions. Surely Aoyama wouldn't be interested in her when he already had a stunning wife like Keiko? Perhaps Shinji had misunderstood. Aoyama couldn't possibly harbor feelings for her. It just didn't seem plausible. Okiku brought Aoyama his supper next and carefully set the little wooden table down in front of the samurai, who was sitting on his knees on the tatami mat. She was about to rise from her crouched position when Aoyama reached out and grabbed her wrist in order to stop her.
Okiku, hold on a moment.
Okiku looked up and met Aoyama's penetrating gaze.
Yes, Aoyama-san?
Aoyama, with a sharp smile, reached out and plucked a single grain of rice from the corner of Okiku's mouth where it had been stuck. Okiku's eyes grew wide as she observed him consume the rice sensually, finishing by licking his fingers.
I can tell you ate the rice I gifted you, and I trust you found it delightful,
Aoyama remarked. Okiku glanced at Keiko, and it was evident that the woman was seething with rage, her complexion flushed crimson. A sense of unease settled in Okiku's core.
Kami-sama, what can Aoyama-sama be thinking? I can't believe he just did that, and in front of his wife, no less. That was incredibly inappropriate.
Okiku moaned mentally.
Yes, thank you, Aoyama-san.
Okiku responded in her usual polite, demure manner.
You gifted a mere servant girl rice. Why?
Keiko demanded, snapping her fan shut to make her irritation clear.
My dear Keiko, Okiku is the one charged with protecting your precious golden plates. She does such a good job. I merely felt she deserved to be rewarded.
Aoyama explained in a casual manner. A calculating expression formed on Keiko's face.
Is that so? You may go, girl.
Yes, milady.
Okiku replied, straightening her posture and exiting the room through the sliding shoji doors to wait until they had finished their meal, allowing her to then gather the tables and return them to the kitchen. As she departed, her eyes met Aoyama's, and she felt his intense gaze upon her. It sent a shiver down her spine. The way he looked at her was intense, passionate, and almost predatory. It seemed as though he was stripping her bare with his eyes. Yet Aoyama was a respectable man, a noble Hatamoto, wasn't he? Surely he was beyond such impure thoughts.
Does he really desire me, even though he's married?
Okiku wondered with a growing sense of unease. Okiku avoided Aoyama's piercing gaze when she finally came to collect the small wooden tables after Aoyama and Keiko had finished their meals. She carefully washed the golden plates in the kitchen and began her trek to the treasury once she was finished. Okiku, having placed the golden plates back in their cabinet and securing the door, heard a presence in the treasury. She turned to find Aoyama standing there. A sense of relief washed over her, as it wasn't a thief, but a feeling of caution remained due to the formidable samurai's presence.
Aoyama-san,
She inquired.
is there something you require of me?
As Okiku drew near, Aoyama approached her with a calculated stride, his smile sharp and predatory. His attire consisted of a blue Haori wrap shirt and black hakama pants, the blue hue accentuating the uncommon blue of his eyes. His long, dark brown hair cascaded down his back. Admittedly, he was strikingly handsome, yet there was an inexplicable quality about him that sent a shiver down her spine. Okiku found herself holding her breath as Aoyama grew closer. However, he simply moved past her and stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the cabinet and its ornate plates.
They're exquisite, aren't they? The shogun gave them to me after I married his daughter Keiko. It was our wedding present. You could say they belong to both of us, but my wife likes to think they're hers alone.
Yes, they're lovely.
Okiku agreed.
And you take such good care of them. I hate to think what might happen to you if, say, one of the plates went missing.
Aoyama suggested darkly. Okiku swallowed a lump of nervousness. Losing one of the plates would be a crime punishable by death.
I'll always keep the key close at hand. Don't worry, Aoyama-san.
Okiku replied, her voice hinting at confusion. Was Aoyama making a threat? Maybe she was misinterpreting him. Okiku's gaze went to the thick silver chain hanging around Aoyama's neck, and a sudden thought occurred to her. It was possible Aoyama was wearing a key around his neck, and this thought made her grow curious.
Speaking of keys, what's the key you wear around your neck open? What is it you protect, Aoyama-san?
You noticed? You're a smart little thing, aren't you?
Aoyama said as he took out the thick antique key and showed it to her.
This key protects two things. One of those things is a sword.
Okiku's heart started to beat faster inside of her chest. Her hunch had been correct.
A sword?
She asked casually.
Yes, a very special sword made from the ore of a fallen star. It is said to be able to slay demons. Its name is Kusanagi.
Aoyama boasted, puffing his chest with pride.
An impressive samurai such as yourself needs an equally impressive sword.
Okiku said slyly.
It's a shame. I'd like to see it.
A hint of surprise flickered across the samurai's face. Aoyama's curiosity was piqued as Okiku's demeanor suddenly shifted, revealing a different, softer side of her that he rarely saw.
If you'd like, I'll show you. It's this way.
Aoyama guided Okiku further into the treasury, revealing a hidden cabinet tucked away in the dim recesses at the back. Inside, a solitary sword stood proudly on a wooden stand. It was this unassuming cabinet that had escaped Okiku's attention earlier. Aoyama retrieved the key from around his neck, unlocked the cabinet, extracted the katana, and unveiled it to Okiku. In the dimly lit treasury, the sword's blade shimmered and radiated a silvery glow, as if bathed in moonlight.
Why keep such an impressive sword locked away?
Okiku asked.
Because this sword belongs to a demon who wants my head.
Aoyama said darkly. Okiku grew startled.
What? A demon?
Aoyama chuckled as he sheathed the sword and returned it to its place within the cabinet.
Just a jest, my dear,
he said, turning to Okiku with a lascivious grin on his face.
You must true me to follow me into the shadows alone like this. I'm a man, after all. Or is this an invitation?
Okiku flinched at the lewd suggestion.
I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking.
I highly doubt that. You're always thinking. I can see the wheels turning in that pretty little head of yours even now.
Aoyama reached out and cupped Okiku's cheek tenderly.
What are you thinking of presently, I wonder?
Okiku swallowed thickly.
Nothing of import, Oyama-san.
You're lying, but I don't mind. As long as you're thinking about me.
Running his hand through her long, thick black hair in a thoughtful manner. He raised a lock of her hair and placed a kiss upon it without breaking eye contact with Okiku.
Oyama-san,
Okiku stammered, stiffening at the unexpected action.
what are you doing?
You're putting on quite the innocent act, aren't you? I can't help but question if it's genuine or just a clever ruse. Maybe you've already recognized my feelings, and you're simply playing hard to get. Let's put an end to this charades, my dear. I want to be open about my feelings. I find you incredibly attractive, Okiku. I want you. I crave you. I long for us to be more than just acquaintances. I want us to be lovers.
Aoyama leaned in and kissed Okiku passionately. Okiku's eyes widened in surprise and dismay. She pushed Aoyama forcefully away from her and struck him with a harsh slap across the face. An instinctive reaction.
Oh dear, what have I done? I just hit a noble Hatamoto.
She pondered anxiously. Astonished, Aoyama touched his throbbing red cheek. It was uncommon for the samurai to be rejected by a woman, given his good looks and wealth. Typically, the servant women in the castle would throw themselves at Aoyama for the chance at a night in his bed. All except for Okiku.
You're turning me down, but why?
He questioned. Okiku was trembling like a leaf.
This is wrong. You're married, Oyama-san.
Aoyama waved his hand in a dismissive gesture.
This is trivial and can be easily resolved, I assure you. I don't love Keiko. It's you I love.
Aoyama's affection for Okiku seemed more carnal than pure, causing her unease. It was a love that alarmed her.
You're misunderstanding me, Oyama-san. I'm merely a servant. It's impossible. I must leave.
Okiku hastened towards the treasury's door with Aoyama in her wake. Upon reaching the threshold, she noticed Keiko, hidden in the shadows. How long had she been there, listening? What had she heard? A wave of dread washed over Okiku. That evening, Okiku found herself restless, her thoughts whirling with various concerns. She struggled to find peace as she pondered Aoyama's confession, his apparent desire for her, the need to disclose Shinji's sword's location to him, and the hostile glare Keiko had given her upon her departure from the treasury. The next morning, as was her routine, Okiku delivered meals to the prisoners in the dungeon, including Shinji's.
Here's your meal, Shinji. I apologize, but it's only millet porridge today.
I'm not hungry, Okiku, Shinji began as he turned to address Okiku. Upon closer inspection, he noticed the dark circles under her eyes and her pallor. His concern grew. What's happened to you, Okiku? Your appearance is troubling. You seem unwell. Has something occurred? Okiku hesitated, her fingers fidgeting together.
Last night, Oyama confessed his feelings for me. He desires a romantic relationship between us.
In other words, he wants them to be lovers. Shinji thought venomously, clenching his hands into fists. How did you respond to his confession, Okiku? He felt jealous of Aoyama's ability to confess his feelings so openly to Okiku, and yet feared Aoyama's true intentions.
What? I rejected him, of course.
Okiku said, meeting Shinji's searching gaze and giving him a disbelieving look. Why on earth would you turn down such an offer, Okiku? With Aoyama as your lover, your life would be far more comfortable and free from hardship. You'd have the opportunity to enjoy daily meals of rice, and perhaps even indulge in sweets. He could provide you with anything you desire. Shinji spoke with a hint of bitterness. Okiku declared,
I'm not interested in such matters. I don't have feelings for him.
Gathering her courage, she continued,
I love you.
A look of surprise momentarily graced Shinji's face, his expression a mix of happiness and sadness. Alas, we cannot be together. Our worlds are too disparate. Even if you don't choose Aoyama, you should choose someone who's not like me, he said, his shoulders sagging dejectedly. Okiku declared fervently,
I don't care about your status, prisoner, criminal. It makes no difference to me. I love you. I'll find a way to take the key from Aoyama, retrieve your sword, and get you out of there.
No, please don't, Shinji exclaimed. If you attempt such a thing, it would mean we could never meet again. I'm willing to remain here as long as I can spend each day with you. Okiku questioned, tilting her head.
I don't comprehend your actions. Are you fearful of Aoyama? Are you acting out of cowardice? Or perhaps it's that you don't love me?
Perhaps I am indeed acting out of fear, Shinji admitted in a voice laced with desperation, fearing the possibility of losing you.
You're not being clear, Shinji. If you're not in love with me, then please tell me. If you don't wish to escape together, then speak up. Why are you avoiding my questions?
Okiku inquired, her voice growing louder.
Who are you talking to, Okiku?
Came a cold, drawling voice. Okiku jumped and spun around to find Aoyama standing behind her. A wave of nervousness washed over her, causing her to resist the impulse to glance at Shinji.
Oh, it was just me talking to myself.
She said, trying to sound casual.
The prisoners never speak to me, and I get so lonely down here.
I can't get Shinji in trouble for speaking with me. There's no telling what Aoyama might do to him. Okiku's thoughts were filled with worry. Aoyama arched an eyebrow at her.
Indeed. I need you to come with me, Okiku. There's a matter of significance we need to discuss in private.
Okiku refrained from glancing at Shinji, fearing her affectionate gaze might reveal her emotions to Aoyama.
As you wish, Oyama-san.
Aoyama led the way out of the dungeon, with Okiku following close behind. Okiku didn't see Shinji throw himself at the bars of his cell and curse his fate. Curse you, Aoyama. If you touch one hair on her head, I will kill you. Aoyama guided Okiku through the castle's halls, along the corridors, and eventually to the treasury. Upon entering, they headed towards the cabinet that held the 10 golden plates.
My wife shared some troubling news with me this morning, Okiku.
Aoyama said in a disheartened voice.
One of her cherished golden plates has gone missing.
What? That's impossible.
Okiku began, reaching into the sleeve of her kimono and letting out a sigh of relief when her hand wrapped around the key that was still safely tucked inside.
Oh, I assure you, they should all be there, securely locked away.
You're welcome to count them to make sure.
Aoyama offered, gesturing towards the cabinet in an obliging manner. Okiku retrieved her key, unlocked the cabinet, and started to tally the golden plates.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9? This can't be right. Where is the 10th plate?
The blood began to drain from Okiku's face as a sense of dread washed over her.
You have stolen it.
Aoyama drawled icily. Okiku's eyes widened in fear, and she swiftly turned to face Aoyama, her face displaying a look of desperation.
No, I didn't take it. I don't possess it. I don't know its whereabouts. I swear to you, I'm telling you the truth. Please, you have to believe me.
Aoyama smirked, running his fingers over his chin.
I wonder where it could be. What should I say to Keiko? She'll demand your execution for this, but I could offer you a reprieve, Okiku, if you cooperate with me.
Please, I'll do anything.
Okiku begged, fearing for her life. Aoyama stated,
If you're willing to do anything, meet me in the forest near the well at sunset tonight, and I'll inform you of what I require from you.
Okiku had no choice but to agree to Aoyama's invitation.
As you wish, Oyama-san.
Okiku's eyes were red from hours of tears shed in her room. She had fought the urge to descend to the dungeon and reveal the truth to Shinji. She yearned for his comfort, yet didn't wish to burden him. Ultimately, this was a matter she was going to have to handle on her own. As twilight approached, Okiku felt a chill in the air as a strong breeze swept through the forest. The forest was a vibrant spectacle during autumn, with leaves displaying a harmonious blend of red, orange, and yellow hues. However, Okiku's nerves prevented her from enjoying the autumnal splendor. While strolling along the forest trail, Okiku pondered over the identity of the thief who had taken the golden plate. Could it have been Aoyama's wife, Keiko, seeking revenge for Okiku's supposed affection towards Aoyama? Or perhaps it was Aoyama himself deceiving her? Had he manipulated the situation? What was Aoyama's true intention? She wasn't naive enough to think that merely returning Aoyama's feelings would be enough. Okiku knew he would want them to consummate their romantic relationship. Okiku contemplated the possibility of Aoyama attempting to approach her with impure intentions. Would she resist him if he tried to pillow with her? If she were bolder, perhaps she could use her hairpin to defend herself and seize the key from Aoyama. With that key, she could release Shinji. However, she dismissed such sinister thoughts, acknowledging she lacked the courage to carry out such an act. As Okiku ventured deeper into the forest, the atmosphere grew increasingly ominous. The trees shed their foliage, and a fog rose up from the damp ground. Eventually, she arrived at the stone well, situated in a secluded glade. She patiently awaited Aoyama's arrival. She shivered, rubbing her cold hands and blowing on them to generate warmth. She lamented her choice of a delicate white kimono and red obi sash, both made from thin fabric. The sound of a branch breaking drew her attention towards Aoyama, making his entrance into the forest's clearing. He donned a luxurious, silver-embroidered dark blue kimono. His good looks momentarily left her stunned, causing her to lift her gaze to his eyes. She shivered, not due to the chill, but from a different source. His blue eyes reminded her of an iced-over lake.
A monster lurks inside of this man. I must be careful.
Okiku thought. Aoyama's expression grew hopeful when he spotted her.
You came.
Under the circumstances, I had little option but to come. Aoyama, could you enlighten me? What is it that you seek?
Okiku inquired, her voice stiff. Aoyama approached her with a predatory stride.
You're aware of my desires, young woman. I desire you,
he stated. As he spoke, Aoyama extended his hand, gently caressed her cheek, and leaned in to kiss her. Okiku's eyes fell upon the chain adorning Aoyama's neck. Despite her apprehension, she allowed him to kiss her. Aoyama quickly grew frustrated with the way Okiku was keeping her lips pressed together, however, and pinched her arm. A gasp was pulled from Okiku's lips, and Aoyama's tongue then invaded her mouth, an act that left her feeling repulsed. She felt bile rising up her throat. At the same time, she realized it would be impossible to give herself to a man she didn't love. Death before such an act seemed a more appealing option. Okiku reached for her hairpin, intending to strike Aoyama on the side of his neck. Yet, Aoyama's swift combat instincts took over, and he swiftly seized her wrist before the hairpin could pierce his neck. Aoyama stepped back and glared at Okiku with a furious look on his face.
What's this? You attempted to assassinate me, you ungrateful wench. Why?
Okiku raised her chin in a defiant manner.
I don't love you. I will not pillow with you. I'm in love with someone else.
Who is this person you're in love with?
Aoyama demanded fiercely, his cold blue eyes ablaze.
I've confessed my feelings to one of the prisoners I tend to. It's him I've fallen in love with.
Okiku disclosed.
A filthy prisoner? You've chosen him over me? Speak his name. I'll eliminate him.
Aoyama demanded, gripping Okiku's shoulders forcefully and shaking her.
I'll annihilate him.
I won't reveal his name. I'd rather perish than betray him,
Okiku declared, her body trembling with fear despite her brave facade. Aoyama's anger flared, his blood simmering with rage.
That can very well be arranged. If I can't have you, then no one will.
In an instant, Okiku found herself unexpectedly pushed towards the well's edge. With no time to brace herself, she tumbled backward and plunged into the abyss. As she descended, Okiku let out a blood-curdling scream, her body plummeting through the darkness. Eventually, she struck the water at the bottom with a loud splash. Sinking deeper, Okiku realized she was drowning in the well water. Was there any point in fighting for life? Was there anything left worth living for? Shinji. Okiku suddenly thought. If Okiku perished, Shinji would lose his only friend and solace. She pictured Shinji's hurt, betrayed expression when she never returned to him in the dungeon. As for Okiku, if she died, she'd miss out on witnessing Shinji's radiant smile once more. Renewed courage filled her, and she knew that he had to endure. She must survive so she could lay eyes on Shinji again. Okiku frantically kicked her legs, propelling herself upward. Upon reaching the water's surface, she gulped in air, savoring the refreshing oxygen. She continued to kick, maintaining her buoyancy. Gazing skyward, she beheld a night sky adorned with stars and a round, glowing moon. It appeared so distant. She marveled at her survival, astonished that neither the fall nor the water had claimed her life. It was miraculous she remained alive. Desperate to escape the well, she frantically scanned her surroundings, the rough stone walls looming before her. The well was overgrown with tangled tree and plant roots, making an exit seem challenging. She understood that she would need to utilize these roots as a means to climb, but the task appeared daunting. The roots appeared slick and damp, and the journey to the top seemed arduous. Okiku grit her teeth, mustered her courage, extended her hand to seize a branch, and commenced to ascend. Frequently, the branch would snap, causing her to plunge back into the water. Undeterred, she persisted in her ascent. She dug her fingernails into the tree roots, yet eventually her nails were torn away. Blood trickled down her palms and stained her white kimono. Gradually, Okiku managed to emerge from the well, collapsing onto the damp, verdant grass. Upon rising from the ground, she exhaled a sigh of relief, having successfully completed her arduous journey. To her surprise, her struggle with Aoyama had yielded an unexpected result. She had obtained the key. Okiku brandished the key victoriously and resolved to return to Himeji Castle. Quietly, she infiltrated the castle and navigated towards the dungeon. She moved along the dungeon corridor and arrived at Shinji's cell. In a tense, urgent voice, she called out to Shinji once she knelt before his cell.
Shinji!
Shinji turned to gaze at Okiku, his eyes widening at the sight of her disheveled state. Soaked from head to toe, her hair hung limp around her face, tangled and wet. Her kimono was torn and saturated, stained with blood. The red obi sash wrapped around her waist accentuated the bloodstains on her kimono even more. A hint of worry flickered across Shinji's visage. "What happened, Okiku?" he inquired. Okiku's face grew serious.
One of the golden plates under my care has vanished, and I've been accused of theft by Keiko. Aoyama proposed a deal, to meet him in the forest near the well. He intended to sleep with me, but I couldn't comply. I couldn't give myself to a man I didn't love. I found his touch repulsive. I thought if I seduced him, I could steal the key, but I couldn't. I attempted to kill him, but he caught me. He became enraged when I confessed my love for someone else, and he shoved me into the well. He likely believes I drowned.
Shinji's eyes brimmed with unspoken sorrow. "Okiku, I'm deeply regretful that you endured such hardships without my presence, without my ability to shield you." Okiku's countenance brightened with optimism.
I'm fine. I survived, and I managed to obtain the key to your liberation.
Okiku flashed a smile and brandished the key victoriously. Shinji gazed intently at the key, his eyes filled with a mix of conflicting emotions. "You're incredible, Okiku," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Okiku inserted the key into the lock, turned it, and swung open the iron-barred prison door.
Now we have the chance to flee together.
She said, her voice filled with hope.
We can finally be together, if that's what you desire. However, I must confess, I'm uncertain about your feelings for me, but I have come to realize that I love you.
As the iron-barred prison door swung open, the Ofuda disintegrated into dust as the seal was broken. Shinji stepped out of the cell and grasped Okiku's hands fervently. He glanced at their intertwined hands in astonishment. "I never imagined we'd be able to touch like this," he said. He raised his gaze to meet hers, filled with uncertainty. "I've always had feelings for you, Okiku, but there's still something. We can't." Okiku rose up on her toes and shared a gentle, affectionate kiss with Shinji. After pulling away, she flashed a radiant smile. The kiss had sent a flurry of butterflies dancing in her abdomen.
We'll discuss more later. There's no time to waste. We need to head to the treasury and retrieve your sword. And I intend to pilfer the golden plates. With those in our custody, we can forge a fresh start for us both.
"It's a nice dream, Okiku," Shinji said in a wistful voice. "My sword." His eyes ignited with the flames of vengeance. "Indeed, let's proceed, my love." Together, Okiku and Shinji exited the dungeon and navigated the castle's dim corridors, eventually arriving at the treasury. A solitary samurai stood guard outside. His eyes bulged as he noticed Shinji and Okiku. He began to cry out in alarm, but Shinji swiftly closed the distance and encircled the man's neck with his hands. In a flash, Shinji broke the man's neck. Shinji cast a concerned glance at Okiku. "I regret you had to witness that," he said.
It's understandable.
Okiku replied. She had attempted to take Aoyama's life earlier that night. In a sense, her hands were also marked by blood. Shinji and Okiku ventured into the treasury, with Okiku leading the path towards Shinji's sword. She unlocked the cabinet with a key, retrieved the sword, and extended it towards Shinji. Shinji grasped his sword, Kusanagi, with a sense of familiarity. "Ah, to hold you once more, my blade," he said. He drew his sword from its sheath, the gleaming edge catching the dim light. The weapon, potential tool for retribution if he chose to pursue it, was now in his possession again. However, would Shinji opt for revenge against Aoyama? Or perhaps would he and Okiku depart the castle together? Okiku navigated towards the cabinet containing the 10 golden plates, her key unlocking the door. As she opened it, she admired the plates lined up neatly. She started to count them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Her eyes widened in shock as she reached 9, realizing the 10th plate was missing. A look of horror crossed her face as she clutched her head, her bloody fingers digging into her scalp.
No! Where is the 10th plate?
Shinji felt a surge of worry as Okiku emitted a cry of distress. Moving swiftly, he approached her, intending to offer solace. He gently grasped her shoulders and peered into her vacant eyes. "Okiku, what's the matter?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Okiku's haunted gaze wasn't on Shinji, however, but fixed on the plates. She seemed to be in a trance as she continued to count them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Her eyes widened in terror as she reached 9, realizing the 10th plate was absent. A chilling scream escaped her lips as she realized once more that the 10th plate was missing. Shinji felt a wave of fear wash over him. "Okiku, compose yourself, please. What's causing this distress, Okiku? We must depart immediately. We need to escape this place." "Oh no." Okiku disregarded his appeals and persisted in her counting.
1, 2, 3.
She repeated this process incessantly. On that particular night, Aoyama found himself tossing and turning, his mind consumed by thoughts of Okiku and her refusal. He couldn't help but recall the moment when his anger had taken control, leading him to shove Okiku into the well. He felt remorse, but he believed it was necessary. It was a tragic waste of such a beautiful woman. Inside, Aoyama sighed heavily. He couldn't fathom why Okiku had turned him down. It seemed irrational. After all, he possessed wealth, influence, good looks, and was a highly skilled swordsman. A frown marred his features as he thought back to when Okiku confessed her affection for one of the prisoners. He couldn't determine who it was, as she hadn't disclosed a name. Aoyama contemplated executing all the prisoners to ensure it didn't happen again. Despite having removed their tongues to prevent such a situation, someone had still spoken to his Okiku. This wasn't the first instance of him taking a life due to jealousy and resentment. Aoyama shifted in his bed, his gaze fixed on his wife Keiko as she slumbered. Keiko was stunning, yet he didn't cherish her. He was aware that she didn't cherish him either. Her heart belonged to someone else, someone Aoyama had been compelled to eliminate to attain the position of Hatamoto.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okiku's voice reached Aoyama's ears, and her ensuing wail caused a chill to crawl up his spine.
Where is it? Where is the 10th plate?
Aoyama stirred in his bed, a bead of sweat trickling down his face.
Okiku?
He whispered apprehensively in the darkness of his room. Was she still alive? Aoyama decided he must still be asleep, and that he was dreaming, but then...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where is it? Where's the 10th plate?
Once more, Aoyama heard Okiku's voice, followed by a chilling scream. Okiku, it seemed she was in the treasury, Aoyama concluded. He gently touched Keiko's shoulder to rouse her from sleep.
Keiko, please wake up. Did you hear that voice?
Keiko stirred from her slumber, glancing at Aoyama with a hint of annoyance.
Voice? I don't hear anything. What voice?
She inquired, frowning as she strained to listen. Aoyama furrowed his brow, puzzled.
Don't you hear her voice? It's Okiku. It's her voice I'm hearing.
Keiko let out an exasperated sigh.
Why are you so obsessed with that lowly dishwasher, Okiku? Now you're even hearing her voice in your sleep. Are you dreaming about her? Go back to sleep. But for the sake of our marriage, don't you dare dream about another woman. You're my husband.
Keiko rolled onto her side and returned to sleep. Aoyama's frown deepened. It seemed Keiko couldn't hear Okiku's voice. He found himself puzzled. Aoyama hastily donned a blue Haori wrap shirt, black hakama pants and zori sandals, and hesitated before securing a sword in the sash belt around his waist. He then proceeded towards the treasury, pushed open the door, and stepped inside.
1, 2...
Aoyama traced the source of Okiku's voice, finding her standing before a cabinet, meticulously counting the plates under her care.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where is it? Where is the 10th plate?
Okiku cried out. Aoyama's heart pounded with a mix of relief, fear, and remorse within his chest.
Okiku,
He questioned tentatively.
you're alive?
Okiku spun around to confront Aoyama, causing him to recoil at her sudden emergence. Her long dark hair clung to her pallid face, some strands now tinged with white. Her once white kimono was tattered, soaked, and stained with blood. He observed that blood trickled from the ends of her fingers, where her nails should have been. Aoyama's eyes widened in fear and terror as he noticed that Okiku's eyes, previously a soft lavender, had turned a chilling blood red. Her ethereal form seemed semi-transparent, revealing her to be a ghost. In reality, Aoyama understood that she had transformed into an onryu, a vengeful spirit. She had risen from the well, seeking retribution against the one who had taken her life. Aoyama stammered,
You're not alive. You're a ghost. You've returned to torment me, haven't you? You're an onryu, a vengeful spirit.
He pointed shakily at her. Okiku's countenance hardened with rage, and she balled her fists at her sides. A momentary look of bewilderment flickered across her face.
Onryo. What on earth are you referring to? I am very much alive, Aoyama. Somehow I managed to survive being thrown into that well. Are you displeased? Where is the 10th plate? Speak up. Did you take it? What have you done with it?
Aoyama's complexion paled, as Okiku's voice echoed with an intensity he'd never heard before, causing him to tremble.
I didn't take it. I don't have it.
He stammered, fearing her wrath. He held back from confessing that he had incited Keiko to take the plate, conceal it, and falsely accuse Okiku of its disappearance.
Falsehoods. Hand over the 10th plate, Aoyama. Hand it over to me.
Okiku suddenly advanced towards Aoyama, seizing the front of his Haori wrap shirt. Aoyama felt a chill as Okiku's touch met his skin.
Release me, you malevolent Yore.
He pushed her forcefully away. Aoyama retrieved an amulet from the sleeve of his robe, the Ofuda, and brandished it.
I will banish you, spirit. Perish, Yore.
He hurled the amulet at Okiku. Okiku's eyes widened in shock as he unexpectedly flung a prayer talisman at her. Was he under the impression she was a spirit? Was he deluded into thinking such an object could harm her? However, before the Ofuda could reach her, Shinji materialized in front of her. Swiftly slashing his sword, Kusanagi, through the talisman. The paper fragments fell to the floor of the treasury, now rendered harmless. Aoyama, I won't allow you to harm Okiku, Shinji growled, baring his teeth at Aoyama. Aoyama was taken aback by the sudden appearance of Shinji, clad in red and black samurai armor, complete with a horned helmet. However, it was Shinji's blue complexion, the dark shadows under his sunken eyes, and the pungent odor of decay that truly unnerved Aoyama. Shinji had transformed into a zombie.
Shinji.
Aoyama gasped, staring at the figure he once considered a friend. How on earth did he appear here? Shouldn't he be confined in the dungeon? A myriad of questions swirled in Aoyama's mind, but he quickly composed himself.
Harm Okiku? I slew her earlier today, much like I will do to you. You're already dead, Shinji.
Aoyama declared.
What does Aoyama mean, Shinji?
Inquired Okiku, her tone filled with concern.
Have you arrived to seek your vengeance against me, Shinji? I had thought you might become an onryo, and it seems I was correct. But how did you manage to leave your confinement in the dungeon?
Aoyama asked, expressing his frustration. Okiku stole the key from around your neck when you decided to push her down the well, Shinji began to explain. Aoyama reached up to feel the usual chain around his neck, only to find it absent.
The key, it's gone.
Shinji stated, "She bravely rescued me from the dungeon."
Did Okiku indeed take the key?
Aoyama questioned, his voice filled with disbelief. Then a shadow crossed his face as understanding dawned upon him.
Hold on. Could it be that Okiku has feelings for you, Shinji?
Aoyama inquired, and both Okiku and Shinji exchanged glances. He chuckled derisively.
How tragic. It seems Okiku has fallen in love with a zombie, all while being oblivious to her own mistake. She chose a deceased man over me. What a pity.
Okiku exclaimed in alarm.
Is Aoyama serious? What's this about you being a zombie, Shinji? It can't be true. Please tell me it's not true.
Her eyes, a fiery red, were filled with bewilderment. Shinji looked at Okiku, his eyes reflecting sorrow. Indeed, I'm dead. I've been in this state for quite some time now. 5 years ago, I was also a samurai in the castle, serving the shogun alongside Aoyama, who was my closest companion. The lord's daughter, Keiko, fell in love with me, and her father granted us his approval to marry. I was to marry Keiko and receive the promotion to Hatamoto. The 10 golden plates you manage were meant as a wedding gift for Keiko and me. Nevertheless, upon learning about my impending promotion, marriage, and receipt of the 10 golden plates, Aoyama harbored jealousy towards me. He coveted the promotion, the plates, and Keiko for himself. During our next shared meal, Aoyama, in a malicious act, poisoned me. Unbeknownst to me, he had given me seaweed that had not been properly treated, which can be deadly. Aoyama, filled with apprehension that I might come back as a vengeful spirit, opted to imprison my corpse in the dungeon rather than burying me. He enlisted a Buddhist monk to seal the cell with Ofuda. My death, tainted by strong feelings of betrayal and rage, transformed me into an Onryu. Upon regaining consciousness, I found myself trapped in the dungeon cell, unable to escape due to the Ofuda. I was alone, engulfed in darkness, until... Shinji turned to look at Okiku intensely. I encountered you, Okiku. I discovered you could see me, hear me. Shinji's revelation left Okiku in shock, her hand flying to her mouth. Unbeknownst to her, he had been deceased all along, a fact that now clarified numerous mysteries. It shed light on why he never partook in meals around her, why he insisted they were from different worlds, and why their relationship was impossible. Shinji had hinted that she should be with someone unlike himself. Now she realized he'd meant someone alive.
Oh, Shinji.
Okiku said, her heart breaking. Shinji offered a lopsided grin. You were a beacon in the abyss of darkness, my beacon, my source of light. I found myself drawn to you, but I understood our union was impossible due to my state of being dead and you still in the flower of your youth. I existed solely for my vengeance. Yet you saved my spirit. Now, you've granted me the opportunity to exact my revenge. Face me, Aoyama. Shinji directed his katana towards the samurai. Indeed, our previous encounter was not the last, Shinji, Aoyama growled, drawing his katana with a menacing glint in his eyes. He charged towards the spectral samurai, his resolve unwavering. As they closed the distance, Aoyama unleashed a fierce downward swing, the sharp edge of his blade aimed at Shinji's heart. With a swift and agile movement, Shinji parried the attack, sending a shower of sparks flying. Aoyama, undeterred, leapt back, creating some space to regain his footing and prepare for another strike. The air was filled with the rhythmic clashing of steel as the two samurai danced a deadly dance, their blades ringing out with each impact. However, it seemed that Shinji held the upper hand, his sword slicing through Aoyama's with an almost ethereal ease. Aoyama's eyes widened in shock as he stared at his now useless weapon. Shinji, with a swift lunge, plunged his sword deep into Aoyama's chest, piercing his heart. Aoyama's knees buckled, and blood trickled down his chin as he sank to the ground, his life ebbing away.
Curse you, I will follow you both to hell. I won't let you two be together in peace. You'll never have peace. I promise you.
Before his life faded, his blue eyes gazed coldly, and he collapsed onto the floor motionless. Shinji slashed his sword down through the air to rid it of Aoyama's blood, and sheathed his sword. He faced Okiku. Justice has been served. There's no reason for me to linger here anymore. A melancholic expression crossed Shinji's face as he observed his hands, which were already starting to vanish as his body began to disintegrate. Okiku stepped forward tentatively.
Shinji, wait. I can't be left behind. Don't abandon me, please.
She extended her hand towards him. Shinji reached his hand out towards hers and their hands touched. Okiku glanced down at her hand and finally noticed that it was semi-transparent.
I can feel you. I'm really dead, aren't I? I must have drowned in the well. I only imagined climbing out.
Okiku realized, but then her bleak expression turned hopeful.
Could it be possible for us to be together? We're both spirits. We're both ghosts. Don't abandon me. Let's linger in this realm and haunt this land together.
Now that I've gotten my revenge, there's nothing tying me to the physical plane. It's time for me to depart from this world, Okiku, he explained as he entwined their fingers. You can't join me on my journey. As a samurai in the shogun's service, I took the lives of innocents. I'm bound for a place of torment. As a kind soul, you don't belong there. Okiku's countenance grew contemplative, and a glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes.
Could it be that I must wander this realm alone as a spirit for all eternity? Never!
Okiku reached for Shinji's sword, drawing it from its scabbard, and studied the radiant blade thoughtfully.
Kusanagi, you mentioned it has the power to banish malevolent spirits, correct?
Okiku, no! What are you doing? Shinji cried out in distress as she aimed Kusanagi at herself. Okiku plunged the sword through her heart.
There, I've taken my own life, so I shall join you in the underworld, my love.
Okiku. Shinji caught her in his arms as she fell. Foolish one. Tears of blood trickled down his face and onto Okiku's pale cheeks. Very well, let's remain together. Let's be together for all eternity. Let's descend into the underworld together, my love.
Yes, together. Forever.
Okiku whispered softly. Shinji leaned in and pressed his lips against Okiku's. They kissed as they began to dissolve and fade into nothingness. A few minutes later, a katana lay abandoned on the floor of an empty storeroom.
Tales from the Cryptkeeper.
Okiku is part of a thrilling trilogy by the talented writer KuroKoneko Kamen. Not only did she write the story, but she also edited most of the visuals and brought Okiku to life with her own voice. Despite her busy schedule, she managed to write 2 additional short stories, which will be featuring on the channel this month. Please support her by checking out the free manga and book releases of Okiku and Onryo, now available on her socials. Stay tuned for more amazing content, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.